I'm heading out of town shortly.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Linda.
Hi there. Hi, Linda.
Okay.
Hey, Joel. Hey, Chris.
Hey, good evening.
Still got a couple minutes, but hopefully we make quorum.
Yes, hopefully. It's getting harder and harder.
Mhm. Evelyn, do we have any people who have mentioned that they're not going to join us?
I apologize. I was on the phone with Sid. Commissioner Gassan will not be attending. I have to resend the meeting invite to Commissioner Craig. Bear with me.
Got it.
What is a forum? How many folks?
Four.
Four?
There's 7 of us, right?
Well, 6.
Oh, right.
So yeah. Let me just go ahead and resend the invite to Commissioner Craig.
Do we know if that's still one more commissioner unaccounted for? Spacing.
Commissioner Marshall, I have
Mark
not
Marshall.
heard from. Yeah.
I don't know if I have his contact information.
As soon as Commissioner Craig logs on, we can get started and I'll track down Commissioner Marshall.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, Commissioner Craig is on.
Evelyn, is that a Measure J plaque you have?
I do. I found it
a
when we got our
marquee?
carpets replaced. Yes.
Your
That's a special
office
item.
decor is very on theme. Great.
Okay, so we currently have a quorum.
Wonderful. Well, Commissioner Craig, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
We can't see you, but we can hear you great. So just, I don't know if that's intentional. But at 5:32, let's call this meeting to order. Let's start by the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll do it. Here we go. I pledge of allegiance to the flag, to the United
States of America,
States of America, and to the republic
for
for
which
which
it
it
stands,
stands, one
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
uh,
indivisible, with
indivisible,
liberty and
Liberty and
justice
justice
for
for
all.
all.
for all.
Okay. That will never not be awkward. Can we get a roll call, please, Evelyn?
Commissioner Craig,
Here.
Commissioner Gassan is absent. Commissioner Fuderer
I can't,
is here.
hear.
Commissioner Marshall is absent. Vice Chairperson Robin
Yes, here.
and Chairperson Soto.
Here.
Thank you.
Evelyn, can you just maybe connect with Commissioner Fur in chat or give her a call? She said she couldn't hear, so I just want to make
Okay.
sure. Okay, great. So next is the acceptance of the agenda. Measure J Commission will discuss the order of the agenda and may amend the orders or add items and remove items from the agenda for discussion. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion, so moved.
Great.
Motion to accept.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I'll second. All in favor, if you can say aye.
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 Wonderful. Hopefully Commissioner Federer can come right back. So next we have public comment. This time has been set aside for members of the public to address the Measure J Commission on agenda items and items of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission. Although the commission values your comments pursuant to the Brown Act, it generally cannot take any action on items not listed on the posted agenda. Each speaker has 3 minutes. Do we have any public comments?
Hello, please leave a message after the tone.
That was me calling Commissioner Footer, sorry. I'm done with.
Do we have any public comments? David, are you staff? I'm not sure. Okay. If you want to give public comment, that's fine too.
David's our new Public Works Director.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks. Hopefully.
Mayor Pro Tem
Welcome.
Bernstein has actually would like to participate.
That'd be fabulous. We'd love to have him.
Okay, and he is joining us.
Hello, welcome Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you.
Good to see a familiar face joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks. We are just getting started. You haven't missed much. We just got through public comments and we didn't have any. So
I did just want to, maybe I'll do it in public comment, just mention that City Council has not yet determined the council liaisons. They're waiting for the new city manager. But I know how important it was for Measure J, so there will be some sort of informal, at least in the interim. So I am making myself available to you, to the commission, and Naomi, if there's anything anything you would like me to relay to City Council or help, feel free to do it. Obviously, I can't direct staff, but I can act as a liaison. So that's all I want to say. And I wanted to hear Chris's report.
great. I missed that last thing. And do what report?
I wanted to see Chris's report.
Oh yeah, same. Me too. Well, fantastic. Yeah, we're looking forward to seeing whatever the new structure the council decides, and I know what that communication back and forth is determined to be. So I only have a few brief things for welcome comments today. We did reach out to Parks and Rec again, and they were not able to present today. We will keep doing our due diligence to kind of get that overall priority list and understand kind of their requested projects. But in the meantime, I think the direction that the commission did in November, based off of kind of projects that are in front of Joel's desk that benefit parks, that are movable, actionable, I think are appropriate. But we still haven't gotten that full picture of Parks and Rec that we have really been seeking. So thank you, Evelyn, for kind of doing that due diligence and reaching out. But we still have that presentation. So fingers crossed for February, and we'll just keep checking it with them. So that takes us to, I have a couple other things, but I'll wait until there's other at the end of the meeting for commissioner member comments about some other potential things coming up. But that takes us to new business. And Chris, I'm looking forward to this presentation on an update on the budget.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen here. So let me do that here really quick.
And if I may, in the meantime, for the record, Commissioner Marshall joined us at 5:35 p.m.
Thank you for that.
All right, couldn't get my Zoom working.
Okay, I think this is it. Can everybody see this?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, and when we get to the community initiated project portion of this, Chair Soto, I'll address the Parks and Rec. We did have a conversation with Director Wise on some Parks and Rec stuff, so I'll share that information when we get there. Okay, so just want to kind of say before we go through this, we're introducing some new reporting that I think the commission is going to be interested in. And we're continuing with the old reporting as well with some modifications. These are still kind of a work in progress, but if I wasn't comfortable with the numbers, I wouldn't share them. So I'm comfortable with what we're presenting, but we still may have some modifications to do to tie all these reports together so that they flow. And we're welcome any suggestions for enhancements from the commission. But we feel good about the numbers that are being presented here. So with that, here's the typical budget that you've seen most every meeting. One of the things that we want to do here is we want to start to add an actuals line right next to the adopted budget for 23, so the commission can kind of see where we've been spending at a high level and how we're looking toward budget. So that's something yet to come, and hopefully that'll be introduced at the next meeting. Nothing of the budget has changed since the last time this was presented. We have added in the expenses line continuing appropriations or a carryover number of 12.88 million. That does tie to the very last page here. That's not it. Sorry, this is it. So the carryover number is coming from here. This is we feel pretty good about these numbers, but we still want to vet them better. But we feel that these are continuing appropriations from prior years. So these are projects that are not complete, that were approved in a prior year. And we carry over what the available budget is every year. So this is the amount that's carried over from prior year approvals of projects. I won't go into detail right now. We can, but I just wanted to mention that here is some of the detail. The number of 12.8 million does go against our budget, and I've included that number right here. One other additional item that was added here. So since I've taken over the reporting, I've kind of dug into some things quite a bit, as much as I can over the last month. And I found some things that I think that I need to bring before the commission. So if you look at the fund balance line, which is the very last two lines, we got fund balance restricted for Measure J capital or projects. We've got fund balance restricted for airport projects. So that's the new line. As the commission's probably already aware, we do set aside $200,000 a year in our budget because of an FAA ruling back in 2017. The FAA ruling was that sales tax collected on aviation fuel sales has to be set aside for airport projects. And so Evelyn, I'm going to credit Evelyn on this for doing a lot of the historical research, provided me with some of these, with some of the information that was done back in 2017 when the aviation rule, or when the FAA rule was enacted. And there was, when the rule was enacted, the city of Palm Springs had to put a process in and notify the FAA of what that process was. The process had to address how we are going to collect the funds, and the process had to address how we are going to use the funds. So first, let me talk about how we're going to collect the funds. So we've been budgeting $200,000 a year. That's the budget amount. The process was supposed to be, back then, the state of California didn't really have a lot of clarity in the way they collected taxes to individual businesses and their sales and associated sales tax. I think that's gotten better since then. But the process back then that was given to the FAA was that we were supposed to get sales reports from the aviation fuel providers, and upon those sales reports, extract the 1% sales tax that they paid and reserve that for airport projects each month. This was a couple finance directors ago, probably an airport aviation director ago, and the process has not been followed as addressed to the FAA. We're going to pick the process back up. I've got a little bit of homework to do on me and the aviation director, Harry. We're going to have a conversation about how that process should work. And we're going to pick it back up again. So the numbers that we're setting aside for airport projects are accurate and based on actual sales. We'll go back in time and reconcile if we have to. The way the funds are to be used. The way the funds are to be used is that city staff would recommend airport projects to both the Airport Commission and the Measure J Commission. Both the Airport Commission and the Measure J Commission have to approve. And then those recommendations go to City Council for final approval. The amount set aside is only for local tax. So the Bradley Burns and the other taxes aren't affected. There are possibly some other local taxes that the city collects that are affected that are not Measure J. We're looking into that as well. But you can see that line item, we ended 2022 with about 1.1 million set aside for the airport projects. And we just added in the budget amount for the end of 23 to get this 1.3 million. So that's where that stands. The only really historical guidance that we have other than the FAA ruling is the letter from a previous finance director to the director of the FAA outlining the process. And that was supposed to be the official notification that the city uses to notify the FAA of how we're going to treat these funds, how we're going to collect them, and the approval process to use them. So I'll kind of leave that there, and I'll go ahead and ask if anybody has any questions on that particular process or that particular amount. Go ahead, Brian.
Given, thank you for the detailed update. That's a lot. There's a lot of history there, and which brings me to my question: is we're looking at a next cycle of projects, which could conceptually include airport projects identified, recommended by staff. Would it be premature to include anything in the coming project cycle, given that there hasn't been a full substantiation of the numbers and I guess a return trip back from the FAA confirming that the process as you described is now in fact in place?
So the projects, yeah. So it's a good point. And once I get, and I should be able to get some sales figures pretty soon. So I'm getting with some of our tax consultants that gather this information on a quarterly basis. I'll be able to find out from that information if we do and can get the individual sales amounts from those fuel providers, and there's only two. So if I can get those numbers and I can kind of verify that we're either close or we're far away, then I can probably better answer that question. If we're far away, we probably need to go backwards and reconcile before we introduce any airport projects, so we know the number that we're dealing with. Yeah. If we're close, then I would say we could probably move forward, but still, I'm going to go backwards and reconcile.
Thank you.
And then as far as dealing with the FAA, if the process changes, I just assume we're going to have to notify them that we have a change in process, other than getting sales reports from the fuel providers that we get them from the state through our tax consultant. And maybe that probably isn't a formal letter addressed to the current director of the FAA outlining the change in our process. But that's probably something I should clear with the city attorney too. Is that helpful? Does that?
Oh, yeah, yes. Thank you.
I was just going to ask, this is also just super relevant as there's been so many changes and things that are being considered for the airport overall, that it'll be valuable for clarity for both commissions, for the public, if they want to give input, understanding how this is being funded. Like, great Great job getting ahead of all of that because those questions are coming.
Yeah, and I apologize, Chair Soto. We did, I did talk to the aviation director last week, and he did want to bring that before the airport commission last night. So we did do that last night. So they are aware of the funds and they're aware of what the next steps are, my homework and my process going forward to try to confirm the amounts. So yeah, I did want to mention that beforehand as well. Does anybody else have any other questions before we move forward? Okay, I'm going to jump to the community initiated projects. I'm going to skip this page just for a minute, only because when
Wait, I'm so sorry, Chris. I have one more question, but it might be to Joel, but you mentioned earlier the carryover fund.
Mhm.
I didn't know if we had like a process or like a timestamp or something in which we like reconsider how active or viable those projects are going to be, right? So if there's a project that's been kind of on a carryover list for 5 years and then it's like, oh, it's actually not a priority anymore or something. Do we have anything in place, either council or kind of your team, or like how do we make that like reflective of like our, you know, what, recognizing it might not happen in a year or two, but like how do we reconsider things timing out?
Right, so there is no process that I know of. When I started, the list for Measure J project was fairly long as well, with a lot of projects that just lingered on for a long time. And the pandemic sort of hit a reset button, and a lot of those zeroed out, and we're not bringing them back unless the department brings them forward. So I think right now we're at a very clean point in time where all the projects are viable. They're moving forward at requests from different departments. Some of the community initiated projects also involve city projects or city facilities. So I think from moving forward, I think we can track this in the next 2-3 years and then ask that question again. Is this a viable project if we're not getting to it? It could be that staff just hasn't gone to it, but I mean, we're all taking steps to try to deliver projects faster. So right now it's a good point to start tracking it moving forward.
Okay, great, that makes sense. One silver lining of the pandemic.
Exactly.
Okay, back to you, Chris, thanks.
Okay, thanks. Oh, and I do want to say on this page, so on revenue to date, and this is through, oh boy, I think it's through this, November, good. You know what, this might be through December. Anyway, okay, the point is, the 23 revenue, 6.47 million, we're greater than the revenue of 6.34 million for last year. And the point I want to make here, this is kind of the same trend we're seeing on our sales tax that goes to the general fund, which is good news because we had strong sales tax last year for the general fund, and we're trending, just a little bit above that as well here and in the general fund. We're both about 2% over. So good news when we compare things to our tremendous year that we had last year. If we're on track to meet those numbers again this year, that's just better news, right? So I just wanted to bring that about, that I'm comfortable with these numbers here. They're trending the same way as the general fund. So it's good news to me that we're coming in at this number. Okay, I'm going to skip through this. I'm skipping through. I will get back to it, but I'm skipping through it because I will introduce this page and then I will turn it over to City Engineer Joel to status. So I want to do community initiated projects because we got a couple things to talk about here as well. And then when I'm done, I'll have Joel update on status too. So these are all the community initiated projects. I want to talk about the conversation we've had with Parks Director Yvonne Wise. So we did talk, Evelyn and I did talk to her, because we wanted to kind of see what her thinking was. And so a lot of these park projects, as Joel will tell you, and he'll look at in a status, some of them have been started, some of them have been scoped, some of them are starting in design. So her process though, is that she goes to her ad hoc committees. She takes that information. She goes to the Parks Commission meetings and she gets their approval. So she has a couple of steps that she goes to before she really gets to vetting the projects or prioritizing the projects. So while some of this is a joint effort between parks, engineering, public works. So it's kind of a process that she is gathering and getting her hands on. She's got some staffing issues that she's really trying to correct. But she wants to get a better handle on some of these things before she comes before the commission, because she wants to be prepared. So, I respected her decision, and I appreciate the conversation she had and her honesty. And that's kind of where we stand right now. But she is, some of these things between her engineering and public works, they are kind of getting to them to try to vet them. So I just wanted to mention that as well. Okay, so these projects, as you can see, project 13 and 14 have been complete. We have issued checks to the schools for the wellness centers and the gardens. So that's good. The visitor center uplighting, that is in progress, and the check should be issued soon. And then we have the Palm Canyon Theater. Nope, not that one. That one's being looked at. Oh, okay, Evelyn, you're gonna have to help me out here. Which is the other one where the check got issued?
The shade structure for the animal shelter.
Okay, so that one, that check got issued as well. So we're making progress on these, on getting the checks to the right people so they can begin their projects. So that's good news. So the other news I wanted to address here may not be such good news. So we have $3 million budgeted, and it appears that we've got 1.3 million yet to spend, but that's not a good number. And I just found out this information a few days ago, so I didn't really have time to update the agenda, but let me tell you what it is, and then we'll put it into this report next month. There's a couple of components here. There's one component of, in this $3 million budget, there is a budget for administrative costs, engineering and design costs, and construction management. So 15% goes to construction management, 15% goes to engineering and design, 5% is administrative. Let me say that is a really raw estimate. So we don't, those are just numbers that were put together, and it could come in way under, could come in right on. Those dollars associated with those administrative costs equals about $700,000. You take away the 700,000 and you're left with 600,000. And what we're finding, and what I want to, and Joel has been very good about bringing this up in most every meeting, is every time, and he's got a couple of more examples, every time a project gets vetted, it's almost significantly under budget. And so now the $600 is going to be far less. So I guess my point, and I'm doing this in just because we want to be transparent, is I don't know that there's a whole lot of money left over out of this 3 million for more projects. And that's kind of what I want to make sure that the commission is aware of, and certainly open for discussion. If there's any questions.
I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. So the administrative burden and the engineering kind of administrative costs is, it sounds like 15 to 20% of whatever is the estimated project. And so once you account for that, that's a much smaller pocket of money than to then do the actual construction. Is that what you're?
That is correct. Yeah. So it's equal to about 35%. The administrative, engineering, and construction management, it's about 35%. And we will show that 35% on this schedule next month, so it's transparent to the commission, and we'll track to that number. Again, I just want to stress, those are estimates, and we really don't know where those numbers are going to come in at. So we're hoping much less, but we're not for sure.
Yeah, and like if I can chime in real quick, at the very beginning when the community initiated projects were coming in and their estimates were coming in, here's how much we think this project is going to cost, right? They submitted it and we accepted it for, and I stressed back then, these are their numbers. We haven't vetted them. We don't know what the real cost is. We don't know how it's going to take to design all. And at some point, we even started trying to put those numbers into this particular application or to these particular budgets that you're seeing. But it started becoming confusing because someone would say, well, the application only says 100,000. Why is it 150 or 130? So at one point we started taking them, and even to the point where we got some of these numbers confused because we did add them in. So we were trying to do that at the very beginning, but it became confusing. So we stepped back and said, okay, let's just show what's on the application itself, right? And I think some of these numbers might even have some of that information already in there. And as Chris is mentioning, and I'll show you a few examples as I go over the status. The projects are coming way over budget, right? That these numbers are not real numbers. They are what they thought anticipated when they submitted these applications, and almost all of them are proving to be fairly low.
So I have thoughts, but I'm curious as to some of my commissioners say. Vice Chair.
I guess one way to look at this is that the current operating year's line item for community projects, which we know we're not intending to have a call for projects for community projects this year. One approach is to look at that current year line item as a contingency for this bucket of projects.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair statement for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly why we didn't think this would be an annual process of soliciting project requests from the community, is that it would be much more expensive, and that we did have to kind of scope projects to get a better sense of the true costs. And this is something we kind of have to decide right now, but I hear you, Joel, when you say using those numbers to then project out how many we can do, but then those numbers aren't maybe based in reality or trustworthy numbers that we can use on a long-term basis. Maybe we just have categories like large scale versus small scale budgets or projects, or but that way we're not and then we're doing 4 big scale projects and recommending 6 small ones, or I don't know, but it really seems like the using numbers that were used in the applications is kind of causing more trouble than it's probably worth.
Yeah.
Yes, Commissioner Butter.
Are you saying then that this list that we're looking at, we are not going to be able to complete these projects? Or do you know that?
Well, I don't think we know that because all of them haven't been vetted. I'm speaking for Joel. Joel, you want to go ahead?
Thanks, Chris. I was just gonna keep muted. No worries. No, Commissioner Berger, I think we've been pretty honest and upfront with the ability to deliver projects, right? These projects above all the other capital projects that we have is a daunting task. But that being said, if you look at the progress, we're actually hitting them pretty hard. We're not just sitting around not doing things. We're trying to move them in one direction or another, or getting them to a point where we're ready to construct or ask for more money. So I'm actually just looking at it 6 months in, thinking that I would have been at no status on all of them today, but we're not. We're actually moving them. And I've always made a point, as soon as we were done with getting the funding approved, we started assigning project managers to these projects, and when they could, they would get on them. So in that regard, I can't say we're going to be through all of them, but we are knocking some of them, out.
Okay, yeah, I would agree with you, Joel. It's really encouraging to see what is being done and completed. So we just have to be hopeful that the numbers will shake out well and our funds keep coming, but it's a good list to get through. So thank you for all the hard work that's been put into that. That's all I question.
I have one more question. I don't know if there's any other commissioners who have any other comments or questions. One thing that I'm kind of thinking of, maybe for when we look at this list in the future, or just like the priority list, right? So I don't know if you kind of want to, like, it looks like it's organized by status. No, or is it just the number of projects? Like the number almost lists, at least for me, like the order of importance, but that might not necessarily be the case, right? So I don't know if there's something, if something is not started but is the most important, like we should be mindful, like even though we haven't used any of that money, this is a priority project that will be, you know, whatever. But that's the only thing that I can think that might be like, this is really helpful, and that might be an opportunity for improvement, but also as a community member, if you were to see this, kind of understanding how they compare to each other.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'll talk to the parks and then, you know, Joel can come back. When I talk to Yvonne, that's on her list. And she knows that is a priority that the commission wants for her to set those priorities. And she's actively doing that when she talks to those ad hoc committees and the Parks Commission. So once she has conversations with them about these projects, and by the way, they know about most of these. I think there was only 2 projects on this list that she wasn't aware of. So she's going to take these projects to the committees, to the commission, and through that process, she will establish what they feel the priorities are.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, and I would also just underscore like how much we value your feedback, Joel, in terms of like the drainage at the Boys and Girls Club is terrible and it needs like really clear-eyed attention before, you know, this, or just kind of giving us that honest feedback, because that should also drive some of our hopefully some of our decisions. So great. Any other comments or questions for either Chris or Joel?
Okay, I'm going to move up.
One of the things that I did, before we move on, I did want to point out with David McAbee that joined the team now, I think he's now working to hire project managers as consultants to help out as well. So I've stepped up. We have one project manager that is on my team now, and we're expecting another one to come on soon. So with those 2 project managers, we're getting to a lot of these projects. In addition to that, David McAbee is actually reaching out for a lot of the deferred maintenance to his facilities that are also out there that used to be on our list, and eventually we started kind of divvying up who does what. But David is also going to be a great resource in the future to be able to attack facility projects that the city owns that are deferred maintenance or that need addressing. His team is going to be able to handle it, and he's very in a similar boat as I am and everybody else, staffing up to try to meet the demands and the requirements of all these deferred projects and new projects that are always coming forward. So David, I don't know if you have some time to say a little bit of words there.
Certainly, but well said. Thank you, Joel. But absolutely, this is high on my radar as well. And we are, as Joel just spoke to, you know, I am working on staffing up, not only consultant wise, but actual staffing and working with Yvonne, and Joel and I and Chris as well will try to get this train moving. So certainly we're working to move in that direction. And you know, hopefully I'll be an asset for you guys. And
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move forward. I'm going to go back to this page, and so there's 2 pages here, and this is the comprehensive.
I just want to ask a question.
Sure, go ahead.
If everything you said about David and David speaking, I guess that's telling us we have no financial concerns for next year. Is that right? Thank you.
Okay, so this is all of the projects that are being worked on in with Measure J funds. So you can see,
David, before you, I'm sorry, Chris, can you call this the true up
Yes, so I understand this is the true up
The
report.
commission is very, very familiar with the word true up. So this is our attempt at, when we hit the reset button, working now with our new finance system and the new finance team, they've been able to put this great spreadsheet together that's drawing directly from our finance system with some manual labor. For the most part, this is a true up that can be duplicated regularly and strictly coming from the finance system. So this is a leaps and bounds of where we were before, where we were carrying a spreadsheet trying to figure out how much money we had.
Yeah, so well said. And we've got two columns here because we kind of wanted to call out the 22 budget. And then everybody is, I know, familiar with what was approved in the 23 budget. So on the 22 budget, some of this will tie into what the carryover sheet had on it. And that's how we want to kind of tie all these reports together so that they all flow. And then the 23 budget, I think most everyone on the commission will be very familiar with the amounts that were approved by the commission last year. So we have a total budget column that's combining 22 and 23. And then, of course, we got the expenditures in the other blue column. That's a total of 22, 23. And you have a remaining balance column. And then so in the status line, we show what projects are completed. And those are completed will show, of course, a zero remaining balance. Just wanted to touch on a couple of things here. We've issued a check to the Mizell Center, as you can see right here, for 500,000. So that was approved by the commission last year. That's done. Let me see if I can find any other check issues on here. Nope, I don't see it, but I want to drop down here and talk about the Plaza Theater improvements that the commission approved, the police department radios, and of course, there's the debt service that the Measure J supports. So you can see in here what we do and how we account for these are really transfers out to other funds. So for the Plaza Theater improvements, we're transferring that $1 million from Measure J to the general fund, and then that donation will be made from the general fund. And then on the PD radio side, same thing. We're transferring that $1 million into the capital fund, and then the entire purchase of $3.5 million will come from the capital fund. And then, of course, the debt service comes out of the debt service fund. But what we do is we transfer this money out every quarter so that at the end of the year, everything is fully funded. And so that's why you see these things partially funded right now or half funded right now, is because we don't take the hit all in one quarter, or we don't take the hit all in 1 month. We do it so that it's evenly spread out and it's consistent throughout the year. Just wanted to make that point. And then I just wanted to say that I actually, Joelle, I'm going to go ahead and let you take it from here if you want to kind of review some status, or we can take questions from the commission, whatever you'd like to do.
Yeah, either or. I can go down the list pretty quickly. What I did on my status was really keep it to really concise words, where we're at, what progress we're making, if the project's complete, so that hopefully with the true up, the commission actually gets a sense of where we're at and the status of the project, right? I get to much more detail, but I'll have to pull up another spreadsheet to see exactly what's being done. But from how I'm tracking my projects, this is what I can inform you today. And I can go through them if that's what the commission prefers. I can go down the list and I can stop at any point if anyone has questions, or I can just you have the document, you can ask me questions now. However, Commissioner Soto, you'd like me to proceed.
This is a pretty extensive list. So I think going line by line is probably not the best use of time. My immediate reaction is just kudos to the team. We have so many that are completed or in development. And I think that's such an untold success story of all the public works projects that are happening. But I will see if any of my fellow commissioners have any questions on any specific projects.
Right, and one of the things to point out, and the public doesn't realize this, and sometimes some commission members don't, or is that you see the list of projects that are here. These are just strictly the ones funded with Measure J. There's a whole nother list of projects that we're actively working on that are not funded with Measure J, right? In addition to all the private development projects that I work on and that my team works on. So you can get a sense that the amount of projects we have are in all kinds of different stages. And it's very difficult when I'm asked, when are you going to be done with that? When can I get it? How can you, because they're always in various stages. There's so much time lapses sometimes between plan submittals, between, things that we get from the consultants by the time we put it out to bid. So our timelines are very difficult to get down so that someone gets their answer. When are you going to be done with this project? And I repeat myself over and over again, but this spreadsheet here will inform you why it's very difficult to tell you the timeline. And it's difficult to when someone says, well, you should know, right? You're the engineer. You should be able to manage this project. And it's I can give you senses in months and maybe years, but not to when this project will be complete. And it's a repetitive question that it's hard to answer. I'm not trying to hide anything. It's just this is the nature of being a public servant, working in public works, designing projects, and working with consultants and funding sources as well. So if you want me to hit any project that you're really interested in, I can. If not, this is the status of the projects, and I'll defer to the commission.
Quick question, Joel.
Sure.
Do you know, has there been any change of intent with the fire training tower or the relocation of the fire station?
So we were starting to get momentum on that project, but then the fire chief essentially left, and we now have an interim fire chief, right? At some point, we were trying to get the project together. The current acting fire chief really wants to move forward with the fire training tower. I think they settled on a location which is at the airport and not together with the future fire station number 1. And he has been asking questions of procurement of the ability to move forward with that project. So I don't know if that answers the question or you want a little bit more.
It does. No, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
I see.
And that one in particular was a tricky project because we tried 2 or 3 different times to put it out there to bid without success. Our procurement processes, it makes it very difficult to get a general contractor to come in and build the infrastructure to then build and bring in a fire tower on top of it. So it's been a struggle. And I'm in talks again with the fire chief to see if that project can move forward.
Great. Commissioner Marshall?
I just have a general question looking through this list. When you say scope development, is that meaning you're trying to get a feel for what it's really costing or going to cost?
Cost is a factor, but more really, what is the real project we're trying to build, right? How are we developing the scope for the project? Because before we put out a typical project, you want to build a street. So the scope development is, well, how long is that street? How much where are you going to stop? Are you going to add new curves? So you're developing the scope for the project. Then you're able to determine, okay, I need a civil engineer, I need a surveyor. So then you start moving into requesting proposals for design. So that's the basic very beginnings of a project is scope development. Then you move on to design development, or you do an RFP for design services. So I can actually in my status, you can see there's scope development. And if you go down, there's a RFP for design services. So that particular project probably already moved through scope development. We established the scope. We have our RFP for design services. Then from there, we're under design. So it's under design. And then from under design, we go to design complete. and then we go to, a request for proposals or for bidding. We put the project out to bid. You see one of them in there is out to bid. So those are different stages of a project. The scope development is basically the very beginning of a project.
Okay,
Mhm.
thanks for the clarification.
Commissioner Federer?
Yes, I would agree with you, Chair Soto, that going down this is not in a good time. And I think it is very, very clear. Thank you, Joelle, because you can explain this to people when they ask you what's happening to my project. I think this is very, very helpful for our own PR. And when you look at what is being worked on and how much has really been completed, it's very, very impressive. So unless if there are individual questions, my personal opinion is this is very clear to all of us, the status of each of these projects. Very helpful document. Thank you.
Great. I mentioned this, I can't remember to who, I think it was one or two of the city council members, but I recognize that when a project is going to be completed is like an impossible inquiry, but I wonder if there's a way to like I don't know. One thing I've been thinking about is across the city, both for public works projects or even private development, just like is a project on track? Like that's in like green status or has like a green flag or something. If it's like 6 to 12 months delayed, like, okay, like that happens, or 18 months procurement issues, like they're yellow, but I don't know. I feel like there should be a way to, even in like a general ballpark, because I think sometimes if something's like a little delayed, people are just as angry as something that has been stalled for 3 years, right? And so sometimes it's hard to kind of like see them relative to each other. But in general, there are so many completed projects on here that's exciting to see. And the last thing I want to say, maybe Commissioner Robin, this might be something to kind of start as a conversation piece with Amy in terms of projects that we should promote or do some type of public engagement on if we haven't promoted them or announced them yet, and they were recently completed in the last, I don't know, 6 to 12 months. So
I can touch a little bit on the question about how you promote timelines and how can you keep track of it. There is and exists a lot of software out there that can give you those sorts of that type of data. You can integrate it into GIS, you can do storyboards. And one of the things that I've known for a very long time is that is only as good as the people inputting it and the maintenance of that data, right? And you can go onto many websites all over a bunch of cities and you can see projects from 2005 that are still on there, right? And this is not making an excuse, but the volume of work, you need a big staff to be able to track these things and keep them accurate over time. I can today project, all these projects out in the future and then ignore it for 5 years and that data is wrong, right? It's going to be wrong the next year because things change and they're dynamic. So I always put some resistance because I know the data is only as good as the maintenance that it's given. And I see David shaking his head because it's, I think he's experienced it other places where, maintaining the data is useless. It's just a pretty picture. And I know sometimes a pretty picture goes a long way, but if the data is outdated, it's worthless. But there's a middle ground, and over time, we want to develop something like that for the city, right?
Yeah. And I guess what I'm saying is like a project like one of these that are a year or two delayed under like pandemic, all these like procurement issues and other projects or other reasons that have stalled things is really different than some of the stalled projects across the city that people are, I think, really frustrated by. And so being able to understand the difference between that, I think would even give like more credibility to this accomplishments list, right? Because there is a lot of progress that's happening. So but not to add more work, but just something for the average resident to understand where things are. So any other questions or comments on the true up? This is super helpful. This commission loves a true up. It's true. Anything else, Chris, that you wanted to include in this budget update?
Nope, we've went through everything, so, you know, just want to make sure that, you know, the commission knows we're going to keep on trying to improve on this reporting. You know, both Joelle and I have talked about transparency and how important it is. And, you know, we're going to be doing this on a regular basis every month. And if there's anything else that the commission likes to see, I'd be more than happy to entertain it and try to produce it. So I love the internal reporting. It's one of my priorities. It always has been since I've been a finance director, and being in the assistant director, taking over this reporting. It's something that I really enjoy doing, and I really enjoy presenting it. So if anybody has any other type of reporting they want to see, just let me know.
Yeah.
Sorry, one thing to add is, as one of our council members is here, Chris and I are also working to maybe bring back a very similar spreadsheet for all projects in the city. So then the folks will get a feeling for all the projects that we're working on, not just the Measure J Commission ones. And it'll be a very similar spreadsheet, but it's a big endeavor, and we're working toward that, or at least Chris is.
Just to say that was asked for on multiple occasions in the last few weeks, so that's good news.
Yeah, I will just say, probably shouldn't take this time, but it is a large task, but we're going to develop something. So.
Yeah, that's great. And the only other thing I was going to say is, I think the clarification as to like the full administrative cost of each of these projects is something helpful for all of us to keep in mind, that it's, you know, kind of beyond the physical materials, just truly, you know, pushing roughly 35%, so that we approve projects that we think should truly be on the desks of people, and not things that we're not confident can get done. So,
and we'll, you know, and like I said, I think once we really know what those numbers are, we can refine them and have a little bit more confidence in them. But we're gonna trend the history and keep track, and you know, hopefully it's not 35%. Hopefully it's something less than that. But we didn't want to put something out there that was, you know, not true and you know, that was unrealistic. So.
Yeah. Before I forget, I did want to mention something on the community initiated projects. The animal shelter did request funds for the shade structures. And as we were doing the due diligence, the project is short about $50,000 to $60,000 to be able to accommodate the shade structure. So yeah, so the shade structure there is at where is it at? It's
number 7.
Yeah, shade structure is 130,000 right now, but that's why I put a note. The bid, it's over budget. So I will formally come back to the commission next month to request the additional funding to move that project forward.
And Joel, do you remember, didn't you, at the time we were building the list, I thought that you had grossed that up already with your own with your own expectations that the number was low.
Yeah, I think if it was not that one, it was another one. But yeah, that's why I mentioned here. We were trying to do it, and it was kind of, we were getting this confusion, and I stopped. And so yeah, and I thought I did, but I don't know. It was this one.
Yeah, I think one of the headlines that comes out of this for me on the community projects is that the information that everyone had to work with, it was at risk because of the level of detail and the diligence that would have happened if it came from a staff level. And if we filter our expectations when we go through this cycle again with community projects, we need to arm ourselves better.
Yeah, I think so too.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, if that is not, if there's no other questions on the budget, It takes us to general commissioner members, comments and requests. So I do have some comments and requests, but I want to see if any of my fellow commissioners had anything that they wanted to share with staff.
Yeah.
Commissioner Footer.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to ask Joelle about the pool. I had spent some time going to the pool, talking to lifeguards and looking at some of the problems that they felt were there. And one of the ideas I came back with or concern is the safety there. They actually had me climb up on things, and at the end of the skate park on Ramon's side, the hill goes up and it's very accessible to come over the wall and into the pool area, particularly with the bathroom and a shower and even a bench there that are open for people who want to come in when it's not swimming time. And it concerned me because the lifeguards expressed to me that they are very, very cautious and have been told not to go into the shower area, particularly as the sun is going down earlier in the winter. And so I wondered, in the planning of the pool area and what you're planning to do there, had that ever been expressed to you by the staffing?
For me directly, no. This is the first time I'm hearing of it. The good thing is we do have David, who's now in charge of all our facilities, who is has your I think your concern. And as we're developing the work for the pool, maybe that could be incorporated into if there's something to be done there. But that's we would take a look at it. I'm sure David now knows the issue.
Yeah.
Look at it first.
My own suggestion, I think the wiring or the kind of fencing you put in is very expensive, or raising the block wall is expensive. And I think a whole field of pyracantha would end people coming over the wall. That just kind of looking through alternatives there. And I would hope there would be some kind of showering facility made that would not have shower curtains there. That just, when you're looking at the structure there. I was very, very concerned when I came from that morning with the lifeguards. It's sort of the top is open, it needs to be open, but it's accessible for people coming in. And I don't know how you seal the doors there at the end of the day. That's a very big project. So I hope somebody kind of has a conversation with the employees there about how they feel about that safety.
Right. Right now, there's an RFP for design of the swim center locker rooms per the the community initiated project. So the architect or whoever gets that project look into that. Of course, the whole point is to improve it. So
yeah, and they're cutting the chain link fence anyway, getting in the pool, and so I don't think more chain type of fencing is exactly the answer. There's always somebody that gets cleverer than what we think, but I appreciate you listening to that, because I was very concerned what the young women said to me about working there and being aware of who was in that locker room. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I think that is also so important why as a city kind of considers that, like, I think, what is it, the park master plan, really considering all like the weak areas of our various parks. Thank you for that. Any other comments or requests?
I just wanted to interject. I know on the MySouth Center it says check is issued. I thought I would give you an update. We had a meeting with Chris Mills, former council member, who is the architect on the project, and there are a few minor details, but we're hoping to have the permits by the end of the week or next week, and 14 to 16 weeks for construction. So I'm guessing probably July that we'll see the new kitchen.
Wonderful.
It's exciting. I have a request, and I don't know, maybe Evelyn, you can send this to the city manager. In May or June, I guess it was June, when the council was having conversations on the budget, there seemed to be some consensus to increase the quote unquote like Measure J allowance that we use for our community initiated projects. But there wasn't ever firm language written up about if it's a percentage or if it's a flat increase or what that is. And now that we do have a new council in place, I'd really appreciate if we can get some insight as to when that would happen and what that amount would be, because we've learned so much about the community initiated project process. And I think that's the next piece that we should really clarify as our list of projects is slowly worked on, and not right now, but when we do an additional request for projects, we should know all that stuff too. So what's that request, what's required of us, or anything like that, we're happy to have that conversation with council and the city manager, but it'd be great to start the process to get that clarity. Great. Anything else? Any other comments or requests? No? Okay, well, we'll wrap up a little bit early. Thank you again, Mayor Pro Tem. It's good to see you on this call. It'll be even better to see you on the dais. And we will wrap up this meeting at 6:35. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for a great finance presentation, Chris and Joel. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everyone.